Yes, Heminder?
Yeah, start. Justbe Resto Cafe and Wellness is completing 3 years on 3rd June 2020. We welcome you to this very engrossing and empowering session where two families will be talking about their experience in the last few years for a lifestyle that they've adopted. Justbe Resto Cafe and Wellness is committed to make the world a healthier place by serving food and educating and empowering people in a way that helps connect the mind, body, and soul. The 3 years have been an exciting journey that will be completed on 3rd of June. We're delighted to have Dr. Neetu Bajekal, Dr. Rajiv Bajekal, and Rohini Bajekal based in UK as a part of our 3rd anniversary celebration. A warm thanks to you for being with us through our journey as we strive to have a bigger positive impact in the years to come. You have helped us grow and have been a constant motivation for us to continue along this path and get better with time, which is why we consider you our ambassadors.
Thank you.
The Bajekal family is dedicated towards healthcare and nutrition, where Dr. Rajiv Bajekal is a very, very experienced orthopedic surgeon. Dr. Neetu Bajekal is an equally experienced gynecologist. And Rohini Bajekal is a plant-based nutritionist. We're very privileged to welcome the Bajekals, the plant-based family. Also, we have the Nahata family that runs India's first whole food plant-based restaurant cafe in Bangalore. We intend to have a collaborative discussion on the whole food plant-based journey that both the families have experienced with fun-filled challenges to make a revolution in the eating lifestyle of people from different corners of the globe. Let's open the discussion by sharing our experiences on the plant-based journey. Over to you, the Bajekal family.
So I think you ought to start with.
So our story, actually, I grew up as a vegetarian but did try on occasion some meat and didn't really have any views about it, even though my mother had very strong feelings about the violence that was involved. And we moved to the UK and I became vegetarian completely in 1991 when I was pregnant with our second daughter, following a couple of incidents that I saw on television. I still hadn't made the connection with dairy and with, cruelty as such. And so I continued to be a vegetarian up until our younger daughter came home and decided that she was going to become vegan. We hadn't spent much time thinking about those aspects, even though intrinsically, having been born a Hindu, although a non-practicing Hindu, it was in our culture to practice ahimsa. We believed in not having animals suffer. So it was quite an eye-opener for us and for Rohini and Naina, my younger daughter, and myself to embark on the journey of understanding what a vegan was in a time when really we didn't know any vegans. We didn't know very much. My brother was a vegan, but didn't really understand so much. So it was quite a big journey, quite a challenge because obviously friends and family look at you as if you have dropped out from Mars. And so, nobody feels threatened if you say you're a vegetarian. As soon as we said we were vegan, it became an issue. So that was initially the ethical reason why we turned vegan. I then slipped because I found it hard when our daughters grew up and went to university. I, been born in Bengal, although I'm a South Indian, I used to bake a lot. I used to love sweets. And I started having the occasional dairy outside, much to the fact that I didn't really like what I was doing, but I somehow convinced myself that it was all right. It was to do with, societal pressures and family pressures and things like that. So, and so the happiest moment for me, as I started realizing that I had gone into obstetrics and gynecology because it was so thrilling. It had surgery, medicine, all kind, and psychology, all mixed in one. It was really exciting. But I realized that I was actually treating women after the disease process had started. I was seeing about 4,000 patients a year, and I felt there was more to it. And so I set up something called Women for Women's Health to empower women to make better choices. I intrinsically knew what I was talking about was a whole food plant-based diet. I just didn't have a label for it. And so to my joy, a few years ago, Rajiv then decided to join me and become plant-based, not because of anything I had said, but because of a movie, Forks Over Knives. If any of you haven't seen it or your audience hasn't seen it, I would highly recommend Forks Over Knives, as well as a whole host of other movies that have come out since. But certainly that opened his eyes, and as a result, I was introduced to everything all over again, and there's been no looking back.
My journey was, I mean, probably Rohini ought to go next because she's been vegan slightly longer than I've been vegan. For me, I'm finishing it's my 3rd year anniversary this year, pretty much like Justbe actually. So our stories intersect a little bit, I think. So Rohini ought to say her.
Yeah, well, ours is similar. Obviously, I grew up as a vegan teenager, and I had very supportive friends at school. We always used to go to this one restaurant, but I still had to ask to have the prawns removed and the egg removed from the dish. And it was definitely challenging, but I think it was really challenging when I went to Oxford University, because I expected to meet lots of other people who cared about these issues, about animal welfare as just one of those issues, but I was horrified that people really didn't care. My first day in university, there was a giant hog roast, which is basically a giant pig on a stick being roasted in someone's garden, and followed by the next day by greyhound racing. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so not me. I just don't fit in here at all. And it was definitely really hard to be vegan at university, just because there weren't many options in those days. You really had to, there was one place that had soya lattes, for example, and you would get excluded from a lot of things just that you didn't want to participate in. And at university is when, by the end of university is when I started eating some dairy and eggs and fish outside of the house, which never sat well with me, because once you know what you know, you can't go back, you can't erase what you've seen, and it's really horrible. But it's also, it just shows how embedded in our society this is, eating these products is, especially in Indian culture, because when I was 25, I moved to Mumbai, which was one of the best times of my life, but I was shocked there just how much more meat people were eating than I thought people ate in India, and the rapid growth of kind of these, the anglicization rather, or the westernization of diets like pizza, burgers, all of that, replacing home-cooked Indian food. I was really, really shocked. And I moved there to start Raw Pressery and to head up the marketing and branding function. I didn't really know much about nutrition then, and it was kind of when I got into juicing and learning about the benefits of changing your diet. I started reading up and realizing that I didn't know that much about nutrition, and I shouldn't really be marketing, considering I don't really understand the product. Is it doing anyone good? I had clients coming to me having samosas one day and then a juice cleanse the next day, and I thought, that is not healthy. That's not what I want to advocate for. So I came back to the UK and did my master's degree, and it was sort of towards the end of my time in India that I started really connecting with veganism again, and realizing so much of it is present in Indian culture for so many years, like the idea of ahimsa and non-violence, and something my grandparents brought me up with. But I think a lot of times when you grow up in the West, sometimes it feels like Western veganism sometimes erases people who've been vegan for so many years, or who've been plant-based predominantly for so many years, like Rastafarians, Jains, so many different cultures around the world that have been eating a predominantly plant-based diet. And after India, when I finished my nutrition degree in the UK, I went to Singapore, and I was surprised there to go to Taiwan and travel around the region and realize millions of Buddhists have been eating plant-based diets, and Taoists and Buddhists, they've been eating so many plants, and they're often plant-based for long periods and religious festivals and things. So it was kind of connecting the dots and realizing that this is who I am. This is like actually there's a lot of history of this in India and the place that my family's from. So that was really good. And I think just the vegan movement has got more and more momentum over the last few years. And I do consider myself an ethical vegan, but I'm very passionate about whole foods, plant-based nutrition, because I was not a very healthy vegan at university. I just didn't have many choices. So like most university students, I lived on chips, alcohol, crisps, soya lattes. I also ate fruit and veg, probably more than the average university student, but definitely don't have the same lifestyle or diet that I have now. And I know that as people of color, we have to be especially careful. We just don't have the luxury to, you know, abuse our bodies and eat these foods that are just not designed for us at all. They're not really designed for Caucasians either, but particularly people of color, we really should be staying away from dairy and processed food.
So my journey is a little different to the rest of my family, actually, and I'm a bit embarrassed about it because I really should have been on the same wavelength as them. But to be very honest, the way it worked out was I could understand cruelty, and therefore meat and poultry. I mean, chicken went out of my diet in 1996, I think it was. So it's a good 24 years ago now. But I stuck it out with fish and eggs and a bit of dairy here and there, mainly because, well, I'm quite a social animal. I mean, the rest of my family is not as sociable as I am, actually. And the nature of my job, being in orthopedics, orthopedic culture is very carnivorous. I mean, when they go out as a group, as a department, it would be rare for anybody not to order a meat item. And I didn't want to completely stick out, which was wrong, I know. I should have stuck out because it was the right thing to do. But I said, I'll eat fish. And also because I'm Saraswat, so I'm from the Konkan coast, so a coastal Mangalorean, so to speak. And, you know, we grew up eating quite a lot of fish. And that was what I sort of ate from, you know, the animal foods kind of thing. I ate quite a lot of eggs as well, which I didn't recognize at the time, you know, that it was cruel. I thought free-range eggs or organic eggs was absolutely fine. I came to it really about 3 years ago from a health angle. I mean, I was 25 kilograms heavier than I am right now. But because I'm quite tall, I'm 6 foot 1.5 inches. So I suppose it, you know, when you put on weight gradually, not too many people tell you much about it. But I recognized that I was turning diabetic. I was pre-diabetic, and I think I was probably diabetic because I developed premature cataract in both my eyes. And I realized that was pretty serious because as a spinal surgeon, and I operate on people's spines, I had to have surgery on both my eyes. And I realized that that was very close to seeing out my career, so to speak. You know, I mean, at home, I was vegan because that's what we ate at home. And I'd eat a few eggs maybe, but never ate fish or cooked fish at home. I would eat it outside. And there was quite a lot of food eaten outside because we'd be in hospital and get a sandwich, get quite often a tuna sandwich or something without thinking too much about it. And in fact, at that time, our knowledge of nutrition was so poor that we thought that was a healthy way of eating. We thought about omega-3 and all this kind of stuff that you couldn't get from the plant kingdom. Of course, we know much better now. But at that point, you know, one evening, Neetu came back from work quite late in the evening, and I was sitting And I was flicking through Netflix and I chanced upon this movie, Forks Over Knives. And when I saw it, it resonated completely because for those of your viewers who haven't seen it, it's a must-see for anybody. I mean, there are 3 movies, What the Health, Forks Over Knives, and The Game Changers, which I think you should mandate it, that anybody who comes to your restaurant to eat your yummy food should actually watch those 3 documentaries to learn. I mean, I thought the science resonated perfectly with me. And I understood immediately why I was diabetic and overweight. So when Neetu came back home, I said, I'm turning plant-based now. And she said, why, what have I said? Have I upset you in some way? So I said, no, not in the least. I mean, you know, I really want to do it. And of course, she empathetically said to me, I don't think you should give up fish immediately because you're so fond of it. So try weaning yourself off slowly. So a fortnight after that, actually, we went to a wedding and there was some fish and chips served. And I had a bit of it. And I realized, no, I could do without it. After that, I haven't looked back at all. I mean, soon after that, actually, soon after I turned vegan, we had a trip booked to China, which all our friends were saying, I mean, you'll be fine, you'll survive it because you eat fish. Because at that time when we had planned the trip, I was still eating fish. And what about your wife? I mean, she's going to starve. What are you going to do in China? So we went on this trip and there were 24 people with us in the group. And they were mostly Americans. So we thought, I mean, this is going to be a tough battle because there were lots of meals we had to eat together. But in fact, some of those Americans, a lot of them were vegetarian, some of them were vegan, and some of them, they were Adventists. So as you know, the Adventists from Loma Linda, California, they're often vegan. So we found no difficulty because the Chinese don't eat a lot of dairy products anyway. So it was, vegan food was absolutely no problem. In fact, we enjoyed our trip to China and got so much, healthy stir fries and things like that. And in fact, on that trip, the people who were there, they told us about a holistic holiday that was done, conducted from Miami, that taught people about plant-based nutrition. So while we were in China, we booked to go on this holistic holiday. And that, I think, improved our knowledge about whole food plant-based nutrition to the level, we went straight up, almost like the coronavirus graphs that you see of the upswing. Our knowledge of nutrition improved quite dramatically. And since that time, we've tried our best to pursue probably about 90 to 95% of the time, certainly during this COVID epidemic. We have not eaten any food from outside, and at home we're whole food plant-based with no oil. So it has been a very refreshing period of time, even though there's a lot of difficulty with, because of the COVID crisis. But nonetheless, we've enjoyed that. I've lost 25 kilograms in weight, reversed my diabetes, and we're all passionate believers in the way this works for the human body, really.
So why don't the Nahatas start now? Tell us something about yourself and how you embarked on this journey.
So it's been very courageous, Neetu and Rohini, to start at what time, and how many years back. So we are just 4 years old as whole food plant-based, in this lifestyle. So my journey started with the high cholesterol, and I was asked to be on medication. And I'm so glad that I rebelled. That I'm not going to be on medication. It was almost 300, so the doctors were very worried and they said, you need to be on medication. And today I really, when I look back and when I think about it, I'm glad I got cholesterol. I'm glad that I rebelled. And I'm glad that I found Sharan organization run by Dr. Nandita Shah. And I jumped onto the first retreat, which I heard about it, and I went for the retreat for 21 days without knowing that I'm getting into what is veganism, what is whole food plant-based. I didn't know. I just wanted to lower my cholesterol. I come from a background of a Jain community, and I really thought that, yes, being Jains, it's like you really a notch higher than, because we don't eat meat, we don't, so that is the notion we grew up with, and that's what was imbibed. But when I went for the retreat, the first day in the morning, I called Tarun and I said, Tarun, they say that don't have milk. How can milk be wrong? This was my first sentence to him when he called me. If I don't like it, I'm coming back. By evening...
He gave me a big shock. I said, you have spent a bomb. Please don't do that.
It was an expensive retreat. So he's like, you can't, okay, fine, just hang on. By evening, I think the first documentary we saw about milk and about meat and about, I think there was a conscious shift at that moment. I don't know what aligned. I just felt that that's it, and by evening, I think I had to tell Tarun, I said, Tarun, if it's called vegan, then I'm a vegan. I don't know what is it called yet. I still need to discover. It's our first day. I don't know what I'm getting into, but I know that I can't touch dairy products anymore. And there was another shock. Oh, really? Are you going to do that for life? So a lot I discovered during the journey we were 35 participants there, and each one with a different ailment. Mine was just cholesterol, and everybody was like, oh my God, that's like a baby ailment, because people came with, severe arthritis, and they came with high BP, sugar, cancer patients. I think all kinds of ailments and diseases is what I saw there. And from third day onwards, I'm seeing recovery happen. I'm seeing the BP levels going down and sugar levels going down, and people are feeling better. I am feeling better. I went for cholesterol, but I suffered with skin allergy, rosacea for 18 years. And I think I made rosacea my friend, because I knew that I have to live with it. So I'm like, okay, fine. Ointments and creams and I don't know how many antibiotics or steroids cream doctors must have given me. I was living with that. And I think for the longest time, I think from my teenage time, I was suffering with migraines. And that had become a part of my life too. But over there in a week's time, I saw a difference, and I saw all of these improving. I stopped using any sunscreens or ointments I didn't need to use. And cholesterol took a year from 300 to come to 160, 170. It took a year, because I understand now that it gradually reduces. But overall, what I felt was that I was so happy. I was so energetic. I don't think I felt this even when I was 20, the way I feel today with this diet. Yeah. And coming back home was, so, with this rosacea, migraines, I still was a little skeptical that maybe I'm in a very holistic environment. Doctors are there. I'm eating such good food. Over there, we even learned how to cook. So that was one of the plus point. I could, I had all the recipes. Okay, fine. I'm very excited to come back and try it out. So the best part was that I had control of my kitchen, and I had to cook for everybody. So when I came back I actually removed half the things from my kitchen, because I felt that I think 50 to 60% of the food was packaged food, which I didn't realize was unhealthy. And I thought that I was doing a great job by making paneer at home, by, making a lot of things using the packaged products or the canned products. And I thought that I'm making it at home, so it's healthy. I feel that when I'm in the last 4 years, when I'm consulting with so many people, we are just very misinformed. We don't know things. We're not guided well. This is the language which is really not spoken about, that, food is our medicine. This is something which I learned there, and that's become my mantra now. Yes, food is my medicine. So anything, even if it's a tooth problem, I'll say, food is the medicine. We need to work on that. Even today, it's not about just rushing for medicines, and which was our to do thing, and the whole kit of the medical kit was, always ready at home with not one variety of painkillers. I think 6 varieties of painkillers at home, and antas, multiple ones. But I think that was one turning point. 2016 June, the same month, was the turning point. I came back and I couldn't stop myself by sharing this with my family, extended families, friends. I would go to people's home and they're like, I would say the first thing, can I go to your kitchen? I want to show you something, how to make a smoothie. You can start your day with that. And I'm sure people must be thinking I'm crazy, but I didn't have anything else to speak. I didn't know what other conversation to have. And I think the same thing till today. People still don't know that I just speak about food and health and things. And yeah, they tolerate me, and I want to thank all of them. And we came back, and we saw great improvement. And I saw myself very soon, with the support of Sharan organization by Dr. Nandita Shah guiding me, I started giving talks. Because I think I was talking so much to people that I got trained while sharing things, that I started giving talks. Soon I joined her program, for nutrition program with her. And I think during that time we said, my son said that, Mom, if I want to go out, where do we eat? And I think for 2-3 days, I was just thinking about that. And I said that, when these youngsters, they really want to make a shift, where will they go? What will happen? So I just said that, can we actually serve this food? I'm not a chef. I don't know. We don't come from hospitality industry. But I think this work is such, and once we are in alignment with nature, things just happen in our life. And sometimes I really wonder, even today, that did I choose this, or this work chose me? I really feel that I feel very fortunate, actually, very, very fortunate that I'm able to serve this kind of food. The challenges are very high, very, very high. I don't know about the industry. And then there's no fun. I feel there's no fun if there's no challenges. So I've taken it with a stride, and the only thing is that I want to serve this food in the right manner. People came and said, "If you just add oil, yeah, little oil food is better than this dry food." I said, there are hundreds of restaurants doing it. And then why do I need to run it? That people love the dry food, without the oil. But yes, we've got really good feedback, and I feel happy that people acknowledge and know and about this kind of food, and why we are doing it through our talks and cooking classes which we conduct. So that's been my journey, and I can go on. It's so much to share that I can just go on. Yes, Tarun.
Well, I think Nidhi has already given a whole load of information. And just to add about my own personal experience, I have been suffering with reflux esophagitis. And I don't know for how long I've been living with acidity. So when I got married to Nidhi, and she would see me taking Gelusil and antacid every night and every day, and she said, oh, looks like I'm married to Tarun with the antacid, the Gelusil. So I said, yeah, that's part of my life. So unfortunately. But seeing Nidhi's passion and the way she actually started explaining things, I said, okay, why not give it a try? I said, I'll do it at my pace. Don't push me, but very slowly I'll graduate. And the first week, I really felt very good. My energy was fantastic. I would usually in the morning I would feel very lethargic because sometimes I used to wake up in middle of the night with a bad belching, and I had to sometimes even throw up. And I was really fond of having alcohol. So literally I had to go off alcohol, and because it left me with a very bad day. And when this thing happened, I said, wow, this is like, yeah, not bad. And then continued this for another 2 weeks, and I said, good. Now looks like I can go back. So I tried some wine, and I said, "Arey, kuch nahi hua. Good." So, and then by the end of 1 month, I completely gave away the dairy product. And I think I cannot be more thankful to Nidhi that she introduced this lifestyle, this food. I mean, though I'm not a very big foodie, I still, coming from a Marwadi background, ghee, butter. I used to love white butter
Curd.
because and curd was something that was 365 days without curd and buttermilk. I couldn't live without it, but I just gave it up. And of course, there were some challenges, but we overcame those challenges with asking people for help, saying that, if when we would go out, we would tell them that, listen, I cannot have dairy product. I would love to have black tea or black coffee, and something which is without dairy. Or sometimes I would eat from home and go. And now it's so socially acceptable that I feel that I've not given up anything. Yeah, I mean, I'm just feeling so good about it. So, yeah, that's about my journey.
Well done.
Well done.
So me, it has been quite a interesting journey. I remember, like, since the age of 8, I have been suffering from asthma. And when I was in 11th grade, about 16, 17, I started smoking. So it didn't go, not a good combination. And by the time 18, 19, I remember in one hand I would have a cigarette, and in one hand I would have my inhaler. And I always thought that, maybe it's because of my smoking that I have been suffering from, like, my asthma has gotten worse. But then the argument would always be that I wasn't born with a cigarette in my hand, so how did I have it at the age of 8? And still, just the regular trips to the doctor, the medication, and so many tests. I remember when I was 12, I had almost 150 injections in both my arms, like over here, and just to test about what are the things that I'm allergic to. After all the tests, the doctor said, but you can have milk, so you're safe, which was quite funny. And when mom came back, I think, I've always been vegetarian. So the whole concept of veganism didn't quite make sense to me at that point. And not in India also, not many people spoke about it. So it was kind of looked down upon as a fad, as a just a trend, something that's maybe, just for attention. Or the PETA was quite a advocate of veganism. So I just couldn't make sense of it at that point. Once mom came back from the Sharan retreat that she spoke about, and she came and explained this, it just took like a day for me. Like, her explanation was good enough that it logically sat well. And I was able to connect the dots that, okay, so milk is from cow, and we are the only species that's been borrowing, things like that on those lines. And genetically, it does not sit well with our DNA. So these things kind of made sense, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll just require like a week's time because I want to get over my Domino's cheese pizza, popcorns in theater, and Toblerone. These 3 things are my super favorite, and were actually. But after she spoke, like, it did some magic that even for the 3 days I couldn't enjoy those. I was having it and I was like, kya kar raha hai? So that was quite a strong shift, I can say. So it didn't feel like I was transitioning. It was just like within a day's time, my past was as if it didn't exist. And when I continued this for a month, my asthma was gone. I was smoking like twice as I regularly smoke without using the inhaler. Not promoting smoking. But yeah, and the other thing that I noticed was over like 6 months that after like going to parties and drinking a lot, hangovers became like zero. It was so, this is such a college friendly concept that like the next day I would wake up, like I'm sleeping at 2, super drunk, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I'm up and I'm ready to go to work. So I'm just using this as an example, not promoting drinking or smoking, but these are the things that I noticed. And also because I didn't gain much weight, I've always been skinny. So, I wouldn't like, try to advocate saying that try plant-based food and go for it, because people just always look at me and be like, but we don't want to get as skinny as you are. So I always try to be really subtle and quiet about it until I spoke to my close friends. So when it came to my close friends, I would be like, listen guys, this is something I really want to talk to you all about. And so they'd be like, Vardhan, listen, there's my lawn is quite undone. Why don't you just chew it up and like even it out for me? And I would be like, fine, make fun of me. So today I get messages from the same friends saying that Virat Kohli's turned whole food plant-based vegan. Will Smith or Arnold Schwarzenegger, they share about the Game Changers movie. So I feel really happy. Initially, it was quite challenging because I would get agitated. I would feel quite, man, like these guys make so much fun of me for just being vegan and for having whole food, plant-based food. When will they understand? Those are the few notions that would cross my mind, but I would discuss it with mom, dad. They would explain that it's okay. You can't expect everybody to be on the same page all together. You have to give them their time, and that really brought about I became a little more patient, and which again is another trait that this whole food plant-based concept imbibes in you. So yeah, that's been my journey.
Yeah, so Vardhan, I think you have rendered this talk, it has to be tagged parental advisory now.
Ouch.
Yeah. So so the Bajekals, you can take it one by one. How do we work things out when only one family member is a vegan? How do they do it? How do they succeed at it?
I think Rohini can talk about that because her unique selling point is transitioning on to a plant-based diet. So
yeah, I think that a lot of people who especially become vegan for ethical reasons, we can feel really agitated with people we love. With other people, we can be quite calm when we're communicating things, but with our family or our partners or our best friends, you feel like you're a good person. How can you just, I'm telling you what's wrong with this. Why aren't you listening? Like, wake up, see what you're doing. You feel frustrated and angry. And when I was a teenager, I definitely felt that, like, even things that seem so crazy now, like I would type in vegan chocolate cake recipe into the internet, you'd get 5 search results, and now you're like 5 million search results. So I feel like this is never going to change. People literally don't care about animals. They're so low on the list of the agenda. And I felt quite angry and quite bitter. And my mum and my sister felt quite similarly. But going through that and realizing that actually you've got to meet people where they are at, because I also slept after university and had my moment where I just wanted to fit in. I didn't want to stick out like a sore thumb and be questioned all the time. People have all kinds of reasons for this cognitive dissonance. It's because speciesism, the idea that, this invisible idea that animals are less than us, is sort of there throughout society. And I think it's really important to meet people where they're at with no judgment, because you were there one day as well. I mean, maybe now it's going to change and there's going to be a lot more children who are born and raised vegan, but all of us were not. We also ate those products, wore leather, and we have to extend the same compassion to people as well. And some people just don't want to hear it, but you may plant a seed and then it will take a few more seeds to be planted later on, and they may make a change, in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you don't know, but every little bit does help. And whilst I would like the whole world to go vegan, we have to, we have to be realistic, and we have to just help people make that connection. It might be for the environment, it might be for health, for whole foods, plant-based, it might be for the animals. There may be different things, but different things would resonate with different people for sure. And I think judgment, harsh words, eye rolling, mocking someone, like being angry with someone and telling them just go vegan, like, you know, it's just not going to work. It's never, when they've done studies, they've shown that that kind of attitude is just not really going to work for most people. So I definitely think that with partners and with close friends and family, it's the hardest for sure. Every single person I've ever met who's plant-based or vegan says that well, regardless of whether it's a health and lifestyle change or a shift to ethical veganism, they said that the people that are least likely to change are their family and close friends and lovers and partners. And when I met my now husband, I had also slipped from being completely vegan, and I was in India, and I remember on our first date him telling me that he was crying as a child because he saw a truck full of chickens going for slaughter, and he said to his mum, why are they all cooped up like that, like, you know, no space, and he was just crying. And I was like, wow, he obviously cares about animals. But then later that night I saw him tuck into a steak, and I was like, you know, a little bit horrified. But I obviously knew he was that compassionate person. He was brought up vegetarian and with a very socially conscious mother and family. And so I knew that he had that in him. And it took a few years, it did. And there were definitely moments of frustration that I had, but I did try to not show any judgment, just support him, show him that, you know, he's very into fitness, show him that you can be fit and healthy and strong and plant-based, sharing meals with him, you know, doing all of that kind of thing, doing vegan cooking classes together, doing stuff like that, and having that belief that ultimately it was the values that were at his heart that I knew were right. And since then, my mother-in-law, who is in her 50s in India, lives in like Delhi, but her family's from Rajasthan. They have so much dairy in their diet, has gone completely whole foods plant-based, no oil. Both of my sisters-in-law are vegan and whole foods plant-based. And you know, it just shows that with guidance and with no judgment, you can change people's mind. Now, I'm very lucky and very fortunate to have the family, both the family I was born into, but the family I'm married into. And I know that that's not everyone's experience, and they can have family members who are really hostile and even violent towards them for their choices. But you have to set boundaries, and maybe you can see that family at Diwali or Christmas and just have a nice time, but you shouldn't have to tolerate anyone overstepping their boundaries. If they're making fun of you or mocking you, you do not have to tolerate that, and you can set those boundaries. But I think it's important to, you know, if people are asking questions, to respond in a way that is not hostile, to respond in a way that shows compassion to that person as well, and doing things to share your experience. So if you're going to Diwali, you can bring along some vegan laddus, or maybe some whole foods plant-based energy balls rather, or you know, make a tofu palak dish or something like that. Just show people that they can be invited in, that vegan food is delicious, they're not giving up anything. With my wedding last year, I had 180 guests, and the only people that were vegan were my immediate family. Even Sid, my partner, was not vegan at that point. He is now, but he was not then. He was very supportive, and obviously I said, I'm not going to have a wedding unless it's completely vegan. I don't want to wear silk. I don't want to have anything that contributes to animal suffering. And what I was shocked by was the amount of people who have since gone plant-based or vegan since my wedding, and just from not shoving it down their faces, but showing them you're not giving up anything. I didn't even put the word vegan on the menu. I just let the food speak for itself. And one of my best friends, who's a Jain as well, she always thought she was a really, you know, animal lover, like, you know, non-violent person. She was having the coconut yogurt raita, going, this is delicious, like, why do I need dairy? And since then, her whole family's become vegan. So it shows the ripple effect. And I know I've gone on for quite long, but I just want to say that this is just an example of how everyone has their own unique voice, and maybe a more, you know, in-your-face approach is needed for some people. Other people, it just, for my personality, I'm not a confrontational person. I'm quite someone that I don't want to put myself out there in that way. I have my own way of getting the point across. So I just did what was comfortable for me, because I don't want to be inauthentic. And my friends who know me know that, and a lot of them have changed. You think people aren't listening, but it's soaking into their subconscious for sure. When they see you looking glamorous, you're wearing a non-silk lehenga, they're thinking, why do I need to spend 25 lakhs in Anita Dongre, and I could just, you know, do that instead. It's just those little things, and it does, yeah, I think it does resonate at some point with most people.
For me, I certainly felt my happiest moment, I told Rajiv that, when I fell in love with him and when we had our daughters, they were all absolutely glorious moments. But I don't think anything made me as happy when he said he's joining me in my plant-based journey. And as I said, I'd already realized that the women that I was seeing were already ill. I was not actually making them better. And I could not understand. I could not believe the joy I had, and I was angry actually, because all this information has been there for years and years and years and years, but buried under industry-funded studies, buried by ignorance, buried because we have not been taught this in medical school. So nutrition was never a feature. We learned what a carbohydrate was and what a fat was and how many calories it had, and that was it. And to then discover that eating a predominantly whole food plant-based diet, which means focusing on fruits, and yes, fruits are good for us, whatever people may think, they're full of fiber, they have no problems. The more fruit you eat, the lower the risk of diabetes. If you are a diabetic, the lower the risk of complications. So you want to eat lots of fruits and lots of green leafy vegetables and whole grains and potatoes. Yes, potatoes and sweet potatoes and rice and all these wonderful things, beans and chickpeas and soya and rajma and every bean that is available, herbs and spices. There was nothing. It was a very joyous way of living. But to find that the same diet that actually was kind to animals was the best diet for your own health, best diet for my patient's health, that made me really upset and angry, and the best diet for the climate, for our Mother Earth.
And preventing pandemics.
And 80% of what we see, 80% of what a specialist like me and Rajiv see in their clinic, and 80% of what a general practitioner or your family doctor sees in India is related to lifestyle diseases, whether it is heart disease, whether it is stroke, whether it is cancer of ovary, prostate, breast, bowel cancer, whether it is diabetes or hypertension. These are all lifestyle diseases. So it makes very little sense to treat lifestyle diseases with anything other than lifestyle as a first measure. I am a modern medicine doctor, and of course, and I'm a surgeon, and Rajiv's a surgeon, and of course you need to have the tools of modern medicine. You'd be a fool to try and meditate away a broken leg, but you would need that meditation to help you with coping with the pain, correct? So it's understanding that lifestyle is crucial if you want to change the way you're suffering. And most women don't know that more women die of heart disease than men do, and heart disease is the biggest killer. And the only diet that has been shown to reverse or prevent or treat heart disease is a whole food plant-based diet. So until such time, nobody should be doing keto diets and paleo diets and Atkins diets or any of these diets, because they don't bring anything to the table. There isn't the science. In fact, there's negative science to show that you will drop dead early when you eat high animal-based diets, high protein diets. You don't need to. You need to eat what elephants eat. So once I realized that, it was not looking back. Yes, you want to try and be whole food plant-based. You want to be a vegan because that keeps you in the diet. Otherwise, all diets tend to fail. But you have to also be kind to yourself, like Rohini said. Be non-judgmental to your own body, and understand that if you do slip, just pick yourself up and continue. Not everybody's perfect. Not everybody's story is perfect. So it's just trying to find it. You were lucky. You discovered it straight away. I was lucky because my daughter opened my eyes. But Rajiv had to go through illnesses before he found it. So everybody's got their own journey in the same family.
I think one of the other, sorry if I can add, one of the things that happened also when I reversed my diabetes and lost this weight, Neetu felt, okay, we've done this for ourselves and we know that it works. Where do we take it next? And she felt, okay, we can talk about it, but as doctors, there's always a little bit more weightage if you have a qualification. So at the age of 57, both of us went and took a diploma in lifestyle medicine. So we did a course, and Rohini did it last year, just after her wedding, actually. I don't know how she got the time to do it or even study for it, but she was incredible. She passed the same. So all three of us have this qualification from the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine, which gives us that gravitas, that strength of actually talking to our patients based on scientific knowledge. So it's not just some kind of
philosophy.
N is equal to 1 basis that, it helped me reverse my diabetes, but it's not just the philosophy of it, but actually there is a lot of science in it. In fact, the only science, as Neetu said, that can reverse coronary artery disease, and therefore should be really the default diet. And in addition to everything about animals and environment and kindness to everybody, the other thing is, if you look at the pandemic that we're in right now, all pandemics have literally been generated from our unhealthy rearing of animals and keeping them in confined spaces. I mean, this virus just didn't materialize from the jungles or the forests of somewhere. It was because people have started eating animals that they're keeping in closed, confined spaces. And it's much easier for a virus to mutate and jump into another species, and then human-to-human transmission occurs. So just from the misery of the last few months and the loss of so many lives, human beings should really learn that you're not giving up anything. On the contrary, there's 6 main species of animals that we eat, and there are 20,000 plant species that we can eat. So it actually enhances your diversity. And during this period, we've been enhancing our cooking skills, and I've learned how to ferment, make kimchi, make sauerkraut. We've learned a whole lot of dishes. I'm joining on an Ethiopian cooking class very soon. And so all of us learn the diversity of plants is really healthy, and you're not giving up anything. On the contrary, you're picking up a much healthier lifestyle, a much more vibrant way of living, and a much healthier way of living.
Nidhi, what's your take on it?
I really think that this is such a beautiful cause for the body, for the environment, and compassionate towards the other species in the world, that once this thought comes to somebody, there is a ripple effect. It just doesn't stay with us. How it transmits into other people is something which one needs to experience. I just did a class with 40 ladies on 7 days of weight loss. So we have, it's unfortunate that I have to name a reversal of diabetes or weight loss program, but it is just a lifestyle change, if I have to say it honestly. It's just one diet for all. And I just saw that the minute they started feeling a difference in them, they couldn't keep it to just themselves. I heard somebody else calling me, Nidhi, she's joined your class and she shared a recipe and I want to join the class too. So, and that's what happened with me, and I see other people happening too. So I know that this is such a beautiful, and maybe that this is the real way that we feel instantly so good about the food, about our own body, that it gives result. When you say instant gratification, this is instant result, which you see when you're onto this diet. One day you see your tummy cleaning up. One day you see your energy going higher. We see that instantly the minute we put the nutrients, as you were saying that, it's sad that we are not taught about it, but the minute nutrients and fibers reach into our body, the molecules in the cells start rejoicing inside our body. And that shows up, in the energy. It shows up into everybody. And I really feel that, if one person in the family is vegan, and how do we manage that? It is that, very subtly, we need to take charge of it. Usually in India, what happens is, if a man wants to become, the men of the family want to become a vegan, or they want to change the diet, they are expecting everybody else to do it for them, and making, that's what, when men come for consultation, this is what I do. I actually do a live session with them, showing them, this is the way can you start making a glass of smoothie for yourself. And when their family sees that one shift, one movement from their, they also want to do things for you. You can't just demand, you need to cut a salad, find something outside, maybe just a corn cob. Just bring that for everybody. That is whole food plant-based. So these are little things which, when we make a little shift, it actually makes a difference, because they see that he's caring for himself or she's caring for herself, and we all want to do it. So it's just one small step which I feel makes a difference. Yeah.
That's it.
So quickly to touch upon whoever wants to take this up, the top 3 challenges during the initial days of the transition. How was the social life at work and outside it? And how was it impacted by your decision to go plant-based vegan?
Well, I mean, I can say that our restaurant bills have gone down massively. Because pointed out, by our friends who are going out to eat in usually some restaurant which is very meat heavy, because they know we won't be partaking of any of that. So we're not invited out. It does impact your social life a little bit, but once your friends get to know that you're quite happy to go to wherever they want, and you'll find something to eat. And I mean, there are lots of people who talk about what you can eat in restaurants where, and if you ring and talk to the chef in advance and say, well, I do not eat the following things, but I'm very happy to eat something with vegetables. And I mean, at the very least, they'll give you a boiled potato and some vegetables, and you're going for the company rather than necessarily for the food at that point, so you can do it even in the worst kind of restaurants, which don't cater specifically to vegan tastes,
I think I find probably going to people's houses might be the hardest. And I think what Rohini says is taking a dish can actually help. We've been very lucky. Our friends do tend to cater for us when we go, so that most of the dishes would be then plant-based, may not be necessarily whole food plant-based. And restaurants, we are very lucky in London, so it's not really an issue whether it is a pure vegan restaurant or whether it is a vegetarian restaurant or ordinary catering to the masses. Everybody will be happy to cater to you because they want your money. So I don't think that is an issue, but I certainly think that people who are not into cooking, who may be your friends, do get a little bit nervous when if they have to invite you, and so that may then have a repercussion where they might feel, okay, we won't invite them because they might judge us because we are having a steak or chicken and things. And so I suppose it does have some impact, but we have discovered a wonderful plant-based world of friends that we can be completely ourselves. And I think Rohini will fill us in a little bit more about how it is because she's young.
I think it's very important to find a support system. I think most people fail with any lifestyle change or diet, whether or not whatever they're doing, they have to find support. So some people are very lucky and they have a partner who really supports them and will change with them, eat what they're eating. Some people have children who'll do that, but most people don't have that. And most people have to find that community. So online, there's Forks Over Knives, the Facebook groups, support groups. Justbe, for example, like that would be a space where they can actually meet other people who are thinking like them and who will potentially could be friends with, and going to events like that in your own community is the best way. So physical events, obviously before COVID, that was the best place to meet people, but online you could be stuck somewhere in rural USA, but you can meet people online, you can develop relationships online. That's the beauty of the internet when used for good. So you can find people who are on your wavelength, who support you, say don't give up, Like, I have friends that I regularly WhatsApp recipes to back and forth, have that kind of relationship where we motivate each other. Friends and family to keep you accountable is the best thing, I think, to transition. And, you know, maybe you'll lose one or two friends who just cannot handle you trying to be a healthier person, but that is not the type of friendship or relationship I personally want to have in my life. Someone who doesn't want to nurture you and who doesn't want to see you thrive, that to me is not a healthy relationship anyway. So I wouldn't feel too bad about that. Obviously, you know, if you're meeting them with lots of judgment, that's something to reflect on yourself. But if you have other people will come into your life who will be more receptive, and no one should shame you for trying to be a healthier person, for trying to live in accordance with your values. That's just not okay in my book. So I think you have to find people who get you, and whether that's online or in person. I think in COVID times, online is probably the best way. But yeah, I think that's probably the best answer that I can give. And again, normalizing whole foods, plant-based veganism. So bringing along dishes, sending recipes to your friends, you know, bringing along vegan chocolates or something that you've made, or a homemade granola. You can do so many thoughtful things as gifts to show people that you care about them. You want to help them. You know, even something as simple as a book, like lending a friend a book, as long as you're not pushing it in their face, but a book like How Not to Diet by Dr. Michael Greger, that kind of book is a really good gift to give someone who is open and receptive. So I think those sorts of things is what I'd recommend. But there's no need to feel alone with this. There's millions of people around the world doing this, millions of people doing it without the support of a partner or family. So if you want to make a change, you shouldn't let your partner stop you, your friends stop you, your children stop you, anything, nothing should stop you from making the change, I feel.
I would like to add just one thing to whatever you all have said, and so beautifully. I really like what Nidhi says to many of her clients, and to us sometimes when it becomes a little difficult, is saying that don't listen to what others have to say, listen to your body. So I think that itself is such a powerful line, then because my body needs my fuel, the right fuel. And I think both Dr. Rajiv and Neetu, whenever I have heard your talks, I just know one thing, that if I don't care for my body, nobody is going to care.
Right.
So that's the most primary and the important aspect that has to be. And when that is the shift within, I think just like what Rohini mentioned, it's going to definitely touch a people by doing small gestures and giving them gifts. I think it's more about enrolling rather than imposing. And I think that's kind of a lovely approach. Thank you.
I mean, the other thing, Hemendra, is since we've started this kind of lifestyle, we've made the best friends all over the world, literally. So we look forward to connecting with people in every country who have our, a similar way of thinking and eating, and compassion for the world and compassion for animals, etc. We've actually enriched ourselves not just by the diet, but by the connections we have since then.
That's so true, Dr. Rajiv. And I think the documentary, The Game Changers, is making our lives much easier. You just have to mention the name and you can watch it on Netflix. Yeah. No one can question anyone after that. There's nothing to question.
Oh, wow.
Well, there are people who have, but there are people who have, including Joe Rogan, who has got millions of followers. But those are non-existent, just for attention seeking. So the science is pretty clear. And anybody who doesn't want to follow science at least should follow what their body is telling them and try it. It takes about anywhere between 10 days to 3 weeks to change your palate and to change how you feel. Is that right, Rohini?
Yeah, it really does depend on what you were eating before. So someone who was maybe vegetarian before and could have a little bit of a head start in some ways. But really, I think with Indian food, so much of our taste buds are quite dulled by just the amount of oil that is used and the amount of sugar, salt, dairy in the food. And I went to a wedding recently. There were about 500 dishes. It was the most lavish wedding, and I couldn't eat a single thing apart from plain corn papad. I thought I was going to, just melt away by the end. But I went and spoke to the chef and said, please, can you make me X, Y, and Z so I don't starve? But it is shocking how much is used in the Indian diet. And I think it's important that people, if it's as simple as maybe just hiding the oil in your home in a cupboard that you can't get to. So just to do a challenge, like 2 weeks, no oil, see if you can do it without it. There's so many resources online, and you can make all your favorite dishes, like gajar ka halwa, you can make that without, ghee, you can make tofu palak, you can make, there's millions of dishes anyway in Indian cuisine that are plant-based, like just the amount of lentils and pulses and beans that we eat naturally. And we're very lucky. We have a big advantage compared to Westerners because we've always included pulses in our diet, no matter whether in North India, South India, East, wherever you are. People eat lentils on a daily basis in dal. So, and we have to use those things to our advantage and realize you don't need the oil or all of that stuff to make the food taste good. It comes from the haldi, from the cumin, cardamom, all the spices that we use. That's what's giving the food the flavor, not the mountain of oil that you're drenching it in. So a bit of education around cooking techniques and all of those things are really important. And I just think that there's so many resources online, like obviously Sharon is one, but Vegan Richa, she has amazing vegan Indian recipes. A lot of them are oil free as well. She gives a lot of tips for making a tarka without oil. And I think, it's a learning curve. When you're transitioning, I would probably tell people to go vegan first and then reduce the oil, reduce all of the other things, unless they have a health issue, in which case the quicker they do it, the better. But for most people, the first step will be cutting out the animal products, introducing more plants, and then trying to go more whole foods, plant-based, no oil, cutting out the sugar and the salt, for example.
And also, don't forget that the Indian subcontinent is literally burdened with diabetes and heart disease and hypertension. And if you just step back and think about 100, 150 years ago to your great-great-grandmother, oil was only for the rich people, and so was sugar. It was all rationed. And so you would actually roast your spices before you started adding. My mother had a little ration of a little quarter of a bottle in the whole month. So she knew that if she was going to make puris for us for one meal in the month, then the rest of the dishes had to be oil free. And in fact, if you look at all ways of cooking, it's always initially you roast the spices so you get the aroma. Oil does nothing very much. It's just such a matter of habit. And yes, it might add some amount. So you should always use the oil then as flavoring, because as South Indians, we like coconut. If you don't have fresh coconut that you're going to sprinkle on top of your beans and sabji, then you might use 2 or 3 drops of coconut oil. That will give you the aroma. You don't need to cook in it and have all the saturated fat and everything that goes with it. So using salt, sugar, and oil, either if you can't get it out completely, at least just use it as flavorings rather than heating it to high temperatures and increasing all the advanced glycation end products and essentially oxidizing the oils, and you don't want to be doing that. So once Indians understand that we were not actually, this is not how we ate always, and that it was only on weddings or when you went to somebody's house and you realize that that oil was a way of showing off, or sugar was a way of showing off that you had money, right? So we can go back to our roots. It's just discovering all these wonderful steamed dishes and idlis and wonderful South Indian dishes. You live in Bangalore, it's easy to do. You don't have to use the white rice and things. So,
but I think in India we always found giving up dairy, which is so ingrained. It's an odd thing considering that in the South, especially, yesterday we were looking up some literature on this, and lactase deficiency is seen in 65% of people in the south of India, perhaps a little less common in the north, but nonetheless, milk is not happily digested. So cow's milk is not really digested even by most people in South India.
All over the world, actually. All over the world, it's about 70% lactose intolerant, up to 100% in some areas. So, forget the fact that, you're actually drinking milk that is meant for a baby and a baby cow, really, not really for us. Just that our bodies can't handle it tells us a lot.
I would just like to add something. I was coming around reading about addiction, that the marketing or the product people who are making the food products have really found the right strategy. That is that food without fibers can get addictive. Food with fibers are not addictive. So that's what they are rolling around. So every food has a lot of sugar and oil because that's what they know that the people are going to be addicted to. So if you see whether it's dairy, which is with no fiber, whether it is any desserts, you go to the shop and people, are craving. But I never hear people saying that I'm addicted to dates. Oh my God, I have a craving for dates because it is full of fibers. And I don't hear people saying I'm addicted to carrot, but they are addicted to carrot cakes.
Yes.
It's such a beautiful, how nature has designed.
Yes. And that's the base of whole food plant-based, is that it's based on fiber, because fiber is what feeds our gut bacteria, and the gut bacteria then determine whether you are going to get oxidative stress and damage to the blood vessels, resulting in heart disease in some and cancer in others, and Alzheimer's in some, and polycystic ovarian disease in some, and menstrual problems in others. So, you need to be eating foods with fiber. And as Rohini said, it's a journey. So if you are somebody who can't think of giving up your eggs or dairy or whatever, then don't think about that first. Just bring in more color into your diet, bring in more fruit, bring in more fiber. When you do that, you will find that you're not wanting to eat those other foods unless you are able to, understand the ethical side of things. And it depends. Some people are ethical first and then understand the health side. Others understand the health side first and then get the ethical side. Whichever it is, it doesn't matter. The end result is the same. You're looking after your body and you're looking after this big body that you're living on, the earth,
Absolutely.
And also, that the fibers are the intelligent part in the food. And that is going to do all the magic. If you throw that intelligence from our food, it's dead food. There's nothing left to work. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
So the next thing we want to talk about is there any truth to the notion that a plant-based lifestyle is expensive? Would it send a family's food expenses skyrocketing or bring it down? Shall we also take into account the health benefits that accompany a whole food plant-based diet?
Yeah, I think this is a question that I get almost every day from people that, oh, it's really expensive. And I think there's important first to draw the comparison between the UK and India, because, we know that the cheapest foods are plant-based foods like lentils, all the pulses that are available in India, the grains. These are really, really cheap in India and in the UK. However, because of subsidies from the government and so on, junk food is sometimes even cheaper. So cheap processed Parle-G briskets, for example, are heavily subsidized and really cheap. So it's not always fair to say all plant-based foods are cheaper. But overall, looking at it, yes, a healthy plant-based diet is going to be much cheaper than a healthy omnivore diet. And now there are people who obviously don't have the privilege to choose to be whole foods plant-based, and this especially of course applies in India, where you have millions living below the poverty line and who do not simply have the luxury of trying to think about the oppression of carbs or the environment when they're trying to make ends meet every single day. So we need to be cognizant of that, because they're just not in that privileged position. But for many, many other people, particularly the upper middle classes and so on, they have that privilege to choose to eat food that doesn't further contribute to not only the oppression of animals, but also the oppression of people. And that food is extremely affordable. I think that the bulk of the food is what we're talking about is like potatoes, sweet potatoes, grains, lentils, beans, fruits and vegetables, these are so cheap. And obviously some that are local are going to be much cheaper than others. So what I found in India is that a lot of friends messaged me saying, it's really, hard in COVID times to get quinoa. And I said, you don't need to get quinoa, have bajra, have millet, have amaranth. It grows like a weed in India. It doesn't even need water to grow. I did my thesis on amaranth, and it's even higher in calcium than quinoa, and it's also a complete protein. So a lot of people don't really understand that if you're eating seasonal, local, you can save so much money. And in India, the food that's seasonal and locally produced tastes so much better. Like a mango in India is going to taste so much better than a pineapple from Hawaii or an avocado from California. It's just going to taste so much better when you eat local food. And in India, when I lived there, you're spoiled for choice with the amount of greens and vegetables that you have there. So use the Indian carrots. You don't need to get the really American looking orange carrots from Nature's Basket and break the bank. I think that's where people go really wrong. They think that somehow Indian food is inferior to Western produced food, whereas actually you've got less air miles, higher nutrient density. So focus on Indian grains, Indian vegetables, Indian pulses, rajma, chole, like all of the amazing Indian vegetables that I used to eat there. Like, there's just the variety is endless. I can't even begin to name it. But you don't need quinoa. You can have amaranth, bajra, millet, ragi, red rice, all of those things instead.
And I would say that people often are fixated on organic and non-organic and pesticides. Yes, if you can afford it, go for it. If you can support the industry of the organic industry, that's fine. But otherwise, don't stress so much about it, because as long as you're eating low in the food chain, which means that if you eat, for example, salmon or tuna or the cow or goat or chicken, you're eating animals that have eaten other things. So there's bioaccumulation of mercury and heavy metals and persistent organic pollutants and pesticides. So when you're eating low down in the food chain, yes, there may be some pesticides. Yes, if you can afford organic, do. But what I tell my students here in the UK, and when I speak to the public, I say, be smart. If you are on a budget, and we should all be shopping smartly, but go to the supermarket at the end of the day when they are having all the bargains. Go to your open bazaar and to the shops where the local shops, because the prices are lower. Go to the local ethnic shops, so don't go and buy quinoa when you can't afford it, but go and buy, if something is in season, if you have gooseberries that are in season at that time, don't rush to buy strawberries from Kashmir if you're not living in Kashmir, you understand? So it's just eating a variety, eating the rainbow, eating an abundance of fruits and vegetables without having to break the bank. And there are lots of ways of doing it. People have done it all their lives. There is absolutely, in fact, you'll be saving money when you're not buying, okay, soya milk might be expensive. Learn to make soya milk at home, if it is a problem for you. Or, understand that you can actually save a lot of money if you don't want to eat out. And if you're going to eat out, maybe, opt for the smaller places that will happily leave out the ghee for you, because it's expensive. So it is possible. It's just being open-minded. And once you're open-minded, the floodgates open, don't they?
Brilliant.
Absolutely. So I would just like to add what my dad or my grandmother would say is eating poor man's food. They never fall ill. They eat bajra, they eat jawar, they eat ragi, onions, and they're so healthy. And what you rightly said, rich man's food back then, what you shared, Neetu, is absolutely true. Even the French would have the craziest dishes with cream and sugar and, but the poor French would never fall ill. They were always healthy. And so it's across the globe that, yes. So I think that is one of the most important things that I've learned, at least now.
I think one of the other problems in the West particularly is that they tend to subsidize meat. It's a state subsidized thing. So people get that impression that, whole food plant-based diet is more expensive, but it's because they've artificially subsidized meat products that are so unhealthy for you. But in India, at least you're paying generally the cost price, I think. So there's absolutely no comparison. I mean, I think if you buy local, eat local. And in fact, when we go to India, we fill up our suitcases with the vegetables there to bring back here because it tastes so much better. You know, I mean, I think it tastes far better than hydroponically grown vegetables that you sometimes get.
But there's always that issue of the grass being greener on the other side. And that has been particularly an issue in India, where it is considered that the Australian apple is superior to your Peru or guava, you know. So it's really busting all those myths, and also the fact that it's so sustainable. You know, if you just look at I don't know, 16 kilos of grain would feed two people when you eat it through the cow, for example. Yes, if the cow eats it, and then, but if you were to feed people, you would feed 20-30 people. You would just need a small garden size to produce all your vegetables for the whole year, compared to needing a football field if you are having a couple of cows, and needing maybe few football fields if you ate meat. So, you know, people don't understand that, and they think that, oh, you know, eating soya is bad, or eating, what will happen? How will you feed 7 billion people if everybody went plant-based? Well, you're feeding 70 billion animals. So feeding 7 billion humans is a doddle. And most of the rainforests and the clearing of forests, even in India, is for cattle grazing, to have the milk and the meat. And, you know, anybody who thinks that, my younger daughter said this very nicely to me when I said, why don't you just want to remain vegetarian? Why do you want to become vegan? And she said, Mommy, why are you not understanding that white equals red? So anybody who thinks that their cow goes to an ashram and listens to music for the rest of its life after she has produced 1 or 2 babies and produced 4 liters of milk instead of the 150 liters of milk that she produces per day, she is destined for becoming, you know, to the slaughterhouse. She's destined to become beef that is going to be then either sent abroad or into your leather chapel. And so don't for a minute think that, you know, what you are drinking is not the same as eating meat. It is the same. That, you know, it's harsh, but that is how it is.
Well said.
Dr. Neetu, for a moment I thought when you were going to say, when you eat out, eat at Justbe, but that's okay. Maybe that comes later.
I eat out in Bangalore when I come. I only eat at Justbe because I have
that's good.
is Michelin star level. You know.
And just to add, she doesn't share with others either.
I didn't because the food was just so good. And last time, I just could not believe, had I known that COVID-19 was going to strike us, I'd have ordered double portions at Nidhi's Justbe, because I should have known that I won't be getting this for another year. Yeah.
So I'd like to add regarding the expense bit, that I think if I look at it from my perspective over the years, the medication has reduced. So on a more broader aspect, it definitely reduces the expense. Also, it's been almost 4 years since we started, and I think it's been almost couple of months now that it has helped me get over the smoking and the alcohol. And I realized that having alcohol and even smoking was, again, refined in a way, and chemicals. So I was kind of being contradicting my own actions, and
Plant-based had to win.
yeah, so that has definitely it made the transition again very smooth. Otherwise, I was reading up about various things like how smoking is very difficult, but because of to quit smoking, how difficult it is. But because of this food, the whole food, plant-based, wonderful food, it has been very smooth.
Everything goes into alignment, doesn't it?
Yes.
I think that's what happens.
And
that's
it happens within, naturally.
Yeah. It happens so naturally. And so every time I do talks, people will come up and say, we don't want to hear the science anymore. We know we don't want to read any more books. We've discovered it for ourselves. Thank you very much. We just wanted to come and say hello to you. So it's very interesting.
Can we quickly touch upon the favorite dish of each family? Each family member may have a favorite dish of their own, but there's a dish that is liked a lot by all the people in the family. So what could it be? We'll start with the Bajekals.
I don't know. I think I'm really fond of almost everything, but weekly there's a particular thing that I crave more. So it'll be chole or chana one week. It'll be hummus another week. It'll be dosas the third week. So because there's such a range of things, I think we're all foodies in this house. So I don't have to go anywhere to seek out my favorite foods. But if I had to name one, I guess I really like dal of any kind. So I enjoy that with my rice.
So Rajiv, of course, was never a foodie. And I think having become plant-based, he has now become a foodie and joined the rest of us. And he never could understand why we could talk about food and think about food all the time. And now he was always a good cook, but now he's become an excellent cook, and a very highly experimental cook. My favorite dish, I think, would be khichdi with all the vegetables. I love khichdi, it's my soul food.
Yeah.
I love that. Literally, I love most things, but khichdi, if I had to choose one dish like you asked him, then that would be khichdi. Yes. I love dessert as well, but not giving me my whole last meal. So I'll just stick with khichdi right now. Don't know what Rohini will say.
Yeah, it's so hard because I live and breathe and think and eat food all the time. I'm just such a foodie, but yeah, I agree that it's opened up so many different cuisines from around the world, so many different dishes, and especially with Indian food, I just love Indian food. When I moved to India, I couldn't believe people were eating cornflakes for breakfast, and whenever my friends wanted to eat out, they wanted to go to Olive and have pizzas, and I was like, no, I just want to have dal chawal, thank you. You can do, I'll come for a drink or something. But I was just like, Indian food 3 times a day is what I like. But I suppose for me, if I had to choose one food that I can't live without, it has to be porridge. So in India, it can be a bit harder to find steel-cut oats or pinhead oats, but I make porridge from all different grains. So I use millet, amaranth, buckwheat, all different kinds. And I know millet and amaranth are really easily available in India. And I like adding chopped dates to that, nuts. I make homemade almond butter. I'll stir in a spoon to make it more creamy. Soya milk, lots of berries, which are easily available here, but a little bit harder in India. And India would have chopped a mango or papaya or something and had that. But I think that's my comfort food, because every single morning I have some type of porridge, whether it's right now in the UK, it's very warm. So I have cold porridge, I have overnight oats, I put them in the fridge and it becomes almost like an ice cream. It's so thick and creamy and luxurious. But I love a bowl of porridge. I can even have it as a snack. If I've worked out and I'm really hungry, I'll just make a small little bowl of that, and it's so good for you. I think oats are just a complete superfood, really. They are so high in fiber, soluble and insoluble fiber. And I think of all foods, they're one of the best, apart from dark leafy greens. So that's definitely my go-to. It's very boring. People are like, she wants to eat porridge. But I just think it's so easy to customize. You can add different fruits, different nuts, different seeds, dried fruit, everything, and you can make it so tasty. And I have got quite a sweet tooth, so I like chopping a date into it. But you can make savory porridge. In India, like how you have oats poha and stuff like that, you can make savory porridge with haldi and with different spices and things. And I know some people prefer that as well.
What about the other side of the ocean?
For me, it's hands down South Indian food, idli dosa. It's definitely my favorite. And now, since Nidhi is given a beautiful color to it, red, so I think that makes it even more tasty. And yes, I am a out and out freak of South Indian food. It's a single grain, easy to digest, and no complications. So, and I'm not a foodie, so definitely it makes sense for me.
He is such a South Indian. he just, his curd rice and things, he just loves that. For me, it's so difficult to choose because anything which is whole food plant-based is my favorite. So it's difficult to choose which is my favorite. But yes, I think Indian food. I like our Rajasthani dishes like the dal bati and all of that. And it's crazy that we don't miss out on anything. We have all our Rajasthani dishes, and that's what my favorite is.
So both of y'all took both my favorite dishes, and but recently I think 3-4 months back, mom just made this burrito bowl, which was super tasty. With there was rajma, avocado, because avocado was was in season then, and the black rice. The black rice tastes so wholesome, and I just loved it, hands down.
Yes, Rajiv's one of Rajiv's favorite as well. He loves all kinds of bowls.
So Justbe is going to be celebrating its 3rd anniversary on June 3rd. It also happens to be Nidhi's birthday that day. Yeah. So all of us, including the people in London, in UK, we have been to Justbe a few times. What has been your experience with Justbe and its food? And what do you wish Justbe does going forward?
I think the food is exceptional. I don't actually know which was my favorite dishes, but I would say probably the desserts were absolutely mind-blowing. And you know, with the chocolate brownies and everything, I mean, really everything was good, but I suppose I remember that. What I think Justbe is a beacon. It's a beacon of light and of hope for people in India, that we can do so much with our own cuisine, but also with westernized cuisine, and turn it into something that is so delicious, but is also so kind to our bodies and kind to everything around us. So I think Justbe has got an amazing future. You've got really a passionate founder who's supported by passionate people. And I think that is the key. You know, when you discover what you're meant to do, there's no stopping you. And, you know, people might not understand the message initially, but it is an unstoppable message. And I think continue with your classes and the teaching and just cooking such amazing food, you know, that's all it needs. The food speaks for itself. So
absolutely. But I also love the whole environment and your sound room, and you know, the lecture hall and everything about it. You kind of feel at peace when you enter the place, and it's our favorite stop when we're in Bangalore. So
thank you.
We hope to see you after all this is over.
We look forward to.
Rohini, I know you haven't been to Justbe. I don't think you have been there.
No,
but
I haven't had the pleasure, but I have tried a bite of the lasagna, just 2 bites. That's all I was allowed before she prized a container from my hand. But that's enough for you. But it was, so I need to go and try all the dishes because I would absolutely love to next time I'm in Bangalore. My husband is from North, he grew up in Bombay, but my family live in Rajasthan and in Delhi, so I don't often make it to South India anymore, sadly, but I will definitely come by next time. I don't think a trip to India is likely this year, sadly, but next year, hopefully, when things open up again, that would be amazing. I've heard such good things, and I've read the menu online. Obviously, that's my first thing I do before I go to any restaurant. I've already decided what I'm ordering for starter, main course, dessert.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll be coming with people who you will really love, Dr. Clapper. And so we are hoping what we were planning for later this year as part of your celebrations is that we can then fulfill it next year when everybody is a bit safer.
Yes.
But until such time, remember to wash your hands and eat a whole food plant-based diet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so excited that you have a cafe like that. I think it's so necessary somewhere like India, and it must be, doing really well and getting a lot of attention and awareness out there. So I just want to thank you as well, because I saw that I was on the cusp of that. I left India in 2016, and I saw how many new things were popping up in Bombay, and that was really heartwarming to see, and definitely hope one day I live there again. Let's hope, and fingers crossed.
yes.
Yes, I want to actually thank all of y'all for all the beautiful wishes. And also, there were a couple of questions which we had received. People had sent us questions which we can ask doctors and Rohini, a nutritionist. And I think with our conversation, we have covered most of them. That's the most amazing part, which we sent you. I think we covered a lot. If there is anything left, Hemender, that is something which we could take.
I quickly pop up 2 questions, which I think were not really touched upon in the conversation. So, mock meat or cultured meat.
Yes.
Is it ethical? And also, is it, especially cultured meat, mock meat is different, but is cultured meat ethical? And also, these new age choices, are they healthy choices? Yeah. These are the next market trends, but where are we going with this? That's one, and I'll come to the next one once this has been talked about.
I think Rohini would be the best place to take.
I think that, as an ethical vegan, those original cells in cultured meat have come from an animal. So I personally wouldn't feel comfortable eating it because I feel like I'm missing nothing anyway in my current diet. And I think that it is the only way to affect huge global change, is having technology companies such as this scale up these solutions. I don't think they are necessarily an absolute solution to human health, and I think that they can definitely help with the ethical conundrum, because factory farming is not just a threat to human health, but obviously to the billions of animals who are kept in those conditions. It's not something that I necessarily consider a health food. They're certainly healthier than meat counterparts, particularly things like Beyond Burger and Impossible Burger. Yes, some of them are higher in salt than certain animal products, but they also contain no cholesterol, no UGC5, no heme iron, no lower in saturated fat, and all of the other kind of potentially really harmful and proven carcinogenic components that are found particularly in red meat. So I think some of those products are certainly more healthful than those. Are they as healthful as tofu? Definitely not. And for most people, I think that it would be much more beneficial to focus on eating whole plant foods. But there are lots of people out there who are just simply not going to be able to do that. I haven't eaten meat for 20 years, but for most people, this is what they've grown up with. They've eaten it for 30, 40 years of their life. To actually expect them to transition immediately to a whole foods plant-based diet isn't always possible. So I do look at those foods as transition foods. I think they have a place in the diet for some people, convenience foods, because for example, if you're a child and you're vegan in this day and age, going to a birthday party, you don't want to be eating a tofu salad whilst your friends are all eating beef burgers. It can help to normalize veganism. And I don't think it's as clear cut as are they all really healthy? Are they all really bad? You've got to weigh up each individual product. I personally I don't really eat those products, and I personally would not eat cultured meat at all because I don't think it's ethically vegan. But I am not opposed to it in the same way that I would be definitely to animal foods. So that's my kind of take on it. It would be much better to crowd out those foods gradually and then add in tofu, beans, lentils, and all of those. But I see the place for them in the diet. I see that for a lot of Americans and British people who aren't used to eating legumes, this can be a stepping stone to adopting a more whole foods plant-based diet. So we have to keep educating, but I think the movements aren't opposed to each other. I think whole foods plant-based movement can continue as well as these sorts of technology solutions, and we're all working to create a more fair and equitable and just world. And at the end of the day, I feel.
Well, then what do you think about it?
I particularly feel that this is sort of a gray area, and this can be sort of used as a very nice marketing strategy, particularly for of course we know that with the development in science and technology over the years, with the particularly the nanoscale, these mock meat and cultured meat have been spoken about even before I turned vegan, like about 2011 and 12. It was already under progress. But now that since I have turned whole food plant-based and I understand the implications, I'm pretty sure that it doesn't sit well with our kind of the DNA that we are looking for, that our body demands for. Again, people who are more still comfortable having, like, I would quote examples of my friends who are more comfortable having meat, right? For them, maybe they transition to a whole food plant-based, but as soon as such an option is available, they would jump at that opportunity. Because again, it is something that they've been having since they were babies, right? So I'm myself a little bit confused as to how to go about this aspect, because it is complicated.
In my opinion, I think it's a good thing. I think the vast majority of the world is not turning plant-based or vegan anytime soon. In the meantime, billions of animals are dying. And I think most humans are compassionate. They just haven't looked inwards that much. And so if they are faced with a choice of having a cruelty-free burger that is from mock meat or from cultured meat versus eating a burger that has come from an animal that has gone through pain and suffering, I think most people will swing to that. And yes, some of them their consciousness may improve enough, or consciousness may become more apparent to them, and they may then choose to go more on the whole food plant-based pathway, but not everybody. And even for people who are vegan, for example, not everybody is only focused on health. And so they want to just be kind all the time. So they want to eat foods like this. And then there are others like me who is mostly whole food plant-based, but I do like a treat. I do enjoy some foods like pizza and burgers. So, if it meant that I was having it like a treat, I would be having it. I wouldn't be having the cultured meat because I don't see any place in my diet for it. But I can certainly see a place in a lot of people's diets where they have to choose between an animal that has suffered versus something that hasn't suffered. So that's what I would say. I think there is a place for technology, like Rohini says. The movement has to come from different parts, and we don't know which part will suddenly take off. And technology usually has that advantage over any other slower growth movement.
I would just like to add that this was a debate that happened only on ethical grounds. And it is a burning issue in terms of value system that, like for example, in Jainism, since this is not harming or killing of the animal, it is a cultured meat. So does this give permission to have meat? So we have seen that a lot of vegetarian Jains have been eating non-veg food because they travel abroad or they are studying and they are in the society or friend circle and social thing that, hey, it's okay to eat chicken or it's okay. A few of them I know that, oh yeah, egg is okay, it's vegetarian, it's because it's already, it doesn't have any life, it's dead. So for me, that looks like a much more a stronger ethical reason, giving a permission to have meat, even though it is cultured. So I mean, it's just an food for thought. But yes, definitely, it would be better to not kill animals and then go that way, like what Neetu has said. So yeah, considering that, I think that was
I
a
think health-wise, I think health-wise, the cultured meat is not going to give us any advantage. Whole food, plant-based way of eating, and even mock meats will always win over any real meat product, simply because of all the stuff that goes into it. You know, especially the
Chemical
HEMA and the
wise.
yeah.
yeah.
Yes, Amanda. Anything else? Do we have some question?
Yeah, one last thing. One of the concerns about turning vegan is how long can people persevere being vegan? So, any of you want to share some light on how vegans can persevere, how they can, lead a healthy and more ethical life?
I think understanding that veganism is just the start. So if you are now vegan, you are whole, ideally also whole foods, plant-based predominantly, because that will enable you to thrive, to feel your best, to have the energy in life, to be a shining example of someone that is thriving on a vegan diet. That's also great. But I think that it's just the start. There's so many different aspects to it, and veganism has to be intersectional. We have to look at all the different issues really where social justice matters. So whether that's environmental justice or otherwise. For example, if you're a vegan and you are buying fast fashion and clothes sort of every single week, that is something to me that doesn't necessarily completely fit in with the vegan lifestyle in the 21st century, because we need to look at ourselves and think, why do we need all of that? We need to think of how our actions impact not just non-human animals but also human beings, because humans are animals at the end of the day as well. So looking at how we can be more conscious consumers, looking at not just fashion but all the other aspects in which we consume things is important, in my opinion. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. You can just make small steps. So using less plastic, choosing to take public transport or to cycle or to walk where possible, choosing to buy from ethical companies like Indian companies, for example, that pay people well and that have ethical certifications, supporting those sorts of businesses as really, really important, I feel. And it can take it one step further. There's so many different aspects to this, and veganism to me is just the start of a very big journey in life.
Very well said.
Yeah. Yes, I don't think it's a question of persevering. I think you need support, and you need support from society. You need support from your friends and family. And if you're not getting that, you need to look and find that, because when you stop being a vegan, like many celebrities stop being vegan for whatever reason, usually you will find that it is because they have not understood the essence of what it is. And it's a philosophy, it's understanding that you want to eat the best way, you want to live your best life, not just for animals but also for yourself and for the world. And so people who do seem to fall off, many of them will pick up and get back on track, which is fine. And for those who don't, it's probably because they haven't had the support. And in this day and age, I'm very happy to say that online support, local support is all there. You just have to look for it. So I don't think it's such a huge issue now. It's more to do with education. And that's what Justbe is doing, is educating. Every time you educate one person, they hopefully go out and educate another 5 people, and those 5 people will educate another.
It's a domino effect.
It's a
that
domino
really
effect.
keeps going on.
Right.
And as doctors, I think we have a huge responsibility, huge responsibility as healthcare professionals, Rohini being a nutritionist. I think, patients listen to us, and it's such a lost opportunity where you can actually turn their life around. We've had friends who've died at 45, 42, 50, 60 unnecessarily from conditions like heart disease, where, they've been snatched without their children seeing them seeing their children grow up, their children not having a father or a mother, unnecessary, not needed at all. These are all non-communicable diseases that are preventable. So as doctors, one of our big passions is to educate as many doctors as possible. They're resistant because they have never been exposed to this. But the younger generation, the Vardhans and the Rohinis, they're all the future of our, world. And so I don't think anybody should give up. They should, we should provide them with the tools to help themselves.
What I would like to add is that, whether it's veganism to start with and then transit into whole food plant-based, it's not a diet. You can't categorize it to a diet. It is a lifestyle. It is something which is designed for us, which is ours, which we are giving it back to us. So I think a little bit of education when somebody is on that transition. I think what is very important is what you said, Neetu, is get a support group. Get into that, understand what it is, get educated, read a lot about it, and be aware of what is the benefits of it. I think that is a long-term shift than just doing it and giving a try. And then, I think we need to be a little more connected to such people around us, reading matters around this, doing some cooking classes, how Rajiv is doing right now. That's amazing to hear. And I think that would help us to stay on it. Yeah. Great.
So Rajiv, when you're in Bangalore, I would love to have the Ethiopian cuisine. I'm just wondering how it tastes.
It is amazing. I mean, Rohini introduced me to it some years ago. We went and had injera with a whole lot of vegetables. And recently, Dr. Clapper, when he visited us, we took him down to an Ethiopian restaurant.
It's like South Indian food. It has a fermented sort of like dosa like kind of texture, but it's softer. It's really tasty.
And Rajiv makes the best dosas as well.
Ah.
5 dal dosa is his speciality.
Tarun has never cooked ever in his life, so I'm sure he will.
Well, I think what COVID has done is it's given us the time. I mean, we're privileged in that sense that we haven't had to, we suffer during this period to that extent. And I know a lot of people have gone through suffering, but it's given us the time to learn these new things to enhance our lives for the future. So I think cooking is something that, I've really enjoyed during this period.
Great.
Yeah,
so we'll be.
some hummus are good.
Sure. So, Dr. Neetu, we promise you the best tofu tikka next time you're in town. There's someone very hard at work in Bangalore makes the best tofus, and we look forward to having you at dinner.
My mouth is watering already.
We'll book our flight.
Yep. So, winding up this discussion, it's been amazing to hear the perspective of people who are really making a change, and we all hope to catch up in person soon.
Yes.
Take care, everyone.
So much for
Yeah.
having me on.
Thank you so much.
Very safe
know that
that
this whole talk is going to be very educative. It's not just a conversation, but it's education for many families and many people who are going to watch this. And thank you so much. I really want to thank all of you for being a part, taking time out for this discussion. And I really look forward to have you all soon in Bangalore. Rohini,
Yeah, I'm going to put this on Netflix and make a whole lot of money out of this documentary.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Really. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.